Hi everyone, I'm Michael Short. This is Let's Go Outdoors.
Let's go outdoors where the waters run clear and cold. Mother Nature's world is better than gold. So much to see, so much to do. Let's go outdoors, me and you. Let's go outdoors.
Let's Go Outdoors with Michael Short. Supported by the Alberta Conservation Association, conserving Alberta's wild side.
Hi everyone, welcome to Let's Go Outdoors. I'm Michael Short. Coming up, we'll spend some time at one of Calgary's biggest fundraising events, the Trout Unlimited Dinner at the Hyatt Regency. Their goal? To raise over $1 million in one night. Fall fly fishing can be a very productive time of year to be on the water. Phil Rowley will share some of his wisdom on this topic.
Fat little rainbow, probably stocked this year.
Meanwhile, our outdoor adventurer, Elma, will do her best to master the art of rowing and casting a fly. Ah! I don't know too many fly fishing guides who have a master's degree in fly casting, but you're going to meet one in just a little while. And it's not every day you get an opportunity to tether yourself to the underside of a helicopter. But that's what happened during this rescue training story. Come fall time, many folks turn their attention to hunting-related activities. But as we see next, it's not too late to enjoy some late-season fly fishing. It's the end of September, and I'm out on Dolberg Lake with fly fishing expert Phil Rowley. It's a brisk 6 degrees Celsius. Honestly, folks, these are the oars and not my bones that are creaking. Phil has fished this lake many times before, so we start out at one of his favorite spots. Phil's passionate about fishing in the fall.
The fishing can be fantastic because those big rainbows that this lake is known for are stocking up for winter, eating all that they can. So as the day warms, our activity level should increase as far as the number of fish we hook into.
We get no action at our first location, so Phil leads me across the lake. That's a great way to work off the bacon and eggs this morning, that's for sure. All day, you'll notice we'll be fishing the shallow areas of the lake.
I like to look for areas of transition, so shallow to deep water, weeds to mud. To your right is a very shallow, weedy area. We're starting to see fish roll in there as the day progresses, but we're right on the edge. We're in about 9-10 feet of water, and it slopes off to my left into about 18-19. And they like to cruise right along the edge of the weed growth, and they've got deep water to one side, so if they get scared, that's where they go. And then to the right or right below them is all the food that they can find. This is the grocery store right here over these shallow, weedy regions.
About an hour and a half in, Phil catches the first fish on a leech pattern.
I think he's a little fat little rainbow, probably stocked this year.
Oh, really nice.
Yep. We'll just let him go over the side of the boat. Off he goes.
Good work, Phil.
Thank you. Let's see if we can repeat that feat about 30 times.
As they say, the essence of fly fishing is to match the hatch. At this time of year on the lake, the fly of choice is either this guy, the boatman, or a backswimmer.
Fish on.
Oh
fish
my gosh,
on a boatman.
That's a monster.
No, yeah. Oh my Lord. Oh, he's gone.
Well, it didn't take long and Phil had another fish on. I'm starting to wonder why he's getting all the action.
He barfed up a little brook stickleback.
Did he?
Yeah.
Interesting. Just minutes later, Phil and his boatman hook on another one.
This one's getting a little bigger.
Like, how come Phil is catching all the fish? That's a really nice fish, Phil.
Yeah, it's a nice silver one. So again, Michael, I'm just using a slow sinking line like you. I let it sink about 20 seconds. So it gets it about 2 to 3 feet down, 1 to 2 inches per second. And then just a steady hand twist retrieve, and the line just locks up. They just eat it and goes. I'm anchored in about 10, 11 feet. casting out into the deep water, the wind's sweeping the fly line down a bit, and I'm just bringing it back.
Finally, it's my turn.
Oh, this is a big one. These are really aggressive fish, Phil.
They're hungry, fattening up for winter.
That is a nice fish.
The skunk is out of the boat.
Phil was right on the money when he said the fishing would improve as the day wore on.
As the day goes on and the temperature gets warmer, whoa, look at that, as I'm talking.
Outstanding.
That fly was just sinking. Oh, he's come adrift. Moving the fly, it's just sinking, and a fish swam up and grabbed it, and that's imitating those boatmen again. Just very slow movement.
As the sun warms the lake, the fishing gets better and better. In fall, some like to do what's called the cast and blast, goose hunting in the morning and fishing in the afternoon.
If people practice good conservation and allow the odd fish to swim back and grow, a couple of 3 years, it's amazing how big that fish will be in productive waters like this. And Alberta's got lots of productive lakes that are capable of producing fish as big as this or even larger. Sometimes these takes can be subtle and barely feel it, just tension on the line. Now he's woken up. So we should try and manage our line a bit when we can. Don't take focus off the fish, because that's sure as heck something bad will happen. Always keep yourself turned towards the fish so he doesn't go around behind your back. That's what it looks like. He's got a little bit of color to him.
Oh, they're just absolutely stunningly beautiful.
Maybe that one big run to warm out.
He's
oh,
nice.
He's a nice fish. He's showing his sides right into the basket of the net.
Beautiful fish, Phil.
And there you go. Look at that. Fat, healthy, just a gorgeous, gorgeous fish. Very camera friendly. That's why he's stillwater fish. Tease my river friends. We measure our fish in pounds, not inches.
Phil, what a fantastic day this has been. Of course, you know, fall time, a lot of folks are thinking, wow, you know, should maybe be hanging up the fly rod, but well, when you get days like this, no way.
No way. To me, fall is perhaps my favorite time. Largest fish of the season typically come in the fall because they're stocking up for winter. So the fish are hungry, they're more aggressive because winter's coming and they just have to put on fat to get them through the winter. You can't beat the scenery. That Mother Nature's got her paintbrush out today and all the beautiful oranges and yellows, and there's not a soul on this lake. We're all by ourselves on a public water, less than about an hour and a half from Edmonton. It's unbelievable.
Wow, what a day! And to be out here on Dolberg Lake with one of the most knowledgeable fly fishermen you'll find in Canada makes it even more special, as long as you don't mind him catching 2 or 3 fish for every one of yours.
Hey folks, we've been fishing with Phil Rowley from Trout Unlimited Canada. Phil, what an awesome day. Fall fly fishing. We really, I'm just shocked that I haven't done it sooner.
You're missing out. It's some of the best fishing the season has to offer. Give it a try.
Thanks, man.
Coming up, Elma gets a crash course in how to row a pontoon boat.
I don't know what this says about my hand-eye coordination.
Alberta Conservation Association. Since 1997, more than $120 million has gone towards conserving wildlife and fish and securing habitat, creating a lasting legacy for Albertans.
When Devon Energy recently inherited this 30-year-old access road, they discovered that many of the stream crossings were no longer up to par. So old-style culverts are being replaced with a much-improved modern arch design that reestablishes the natural flow of the bed. The small ledges will be vegetated to prevent materials from the road surface entering the creek. And the cost of this project? $200,000. Further down the road, a bigger stream, a bigger culvert, this time the cost, $500,000. To people like Devon Energy's Chris Walsh, that's money well spent.
We hired biologists to come out and independently assess the whole right-of-way, looking for not only small permanent water courses, but the intermittents and the ephemerals. that we may have to change out our crossing structures to make sure that they meet today's criteria and Devon's intent of doing a good job.
That's good news for fishermen because these streams eventually flow into Winifred Lake, a well-known trophy hotspot. Well, we continue our focus on fly fishing and not wanting to be left out of the action. Elma thought this looked like a peaceful and relaxing activity.
I'm going fishing!
You know, you've got to hand it to Elma, as she never lacks in enthusiasm when it comes to tackling an assignment. In this case, she's heading out to Muir Lake with professional guide and fly fishing instructor Phil Rowley.
So, do you want to walk me through what we're going to be doing today? Because I am as new as they get.
As new as they get.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take you on Muir Lake today, introduce you to stillwater fly fishing and fly fishing in general. You're going to be fishing out of a pontoon boat similar to this one. So a nice, relaxing platform to sit. We're just going to work some flies, probably hang leech patterns under indicators, use the wind to bounce and bob them along and see if we can latch up with one of the large trout this lake's known for.
The boats have been inflated and carried down to the water. Of course, waders are the best method to keep warm and dry when on the water. They even make a kind of fashion statement, don't you think, Elma?
And then we'll adjust these.
Oh, I'm just so attractive in this.
The fish in Muir Lake eat very well, so you have to know what kind of flies to select. That's the next step in Elma's education.
And just locks in place like that. If we go from big to large here, minnow patterns, there's brook stickleback in here, so they eat those little fish. There's leeches too, so a leech pattern's always good. There is a type of aquatic insect called chironomids. As adults, they look like mosquitoes, but they don't bite. They come from the same family. We have a pheasant tail nymph. We've got some mayflies in here. We use patterns of what we call generic. They could represent a lot of different things. We let the fish choose. It just looks good to eat.
It's finally time for Elma to head out onto the water for a leisurely paddle in her pontoon boat.
Going off in all kinds of directions here.
Now, if you pull hard on your right oar, a little harder, you'll come over my way.
I'm left-handed. It's so hard to... Ah!
Okay, now to row, you pick the oars up, behind, and then just pull them towards you. Pull towards. There you go. Pull.
Just want to get there. Everybody else... Don't film! Michael!
And the lesson continues.
I don't know what this says about my hand-eye coordination.
All right. It's a new skill. Learn something new every day. You got that accomplished by 11:45. The rest of the day's gravy.
Yeah, we put in around 9 a.m. Not bad, Elma. Well, after all that hard work, good to see that she's mastered at least one aspect of fly fishing. Elma's afternoon slumber was short, though, as Phil brings in the first fish of the day.
Oh, it's a good fish. Right there. There we go. Phil 1, Muir Lake nothing.
New fishing regulations have made Muir Lake a favorite with anglers. It's not hard to see why when you can land impressive fish like this.
Well, just finished my very first fly fishing lesson, and you know, as a beginner, I did okay. I didn't catch anything, but I guess that's why they call it fishing and not catching, because sometimes you're lucky enough to get a fish and other times you're not. I want to thank my special guest, Phil Rowley, for all of his advice today. Came in handy. And remember, for any more information regarding cold water conservation, just make sure to visit the TUC website, because they've got a ton of information out there. That's it for me. I had a great time and I'm ready to call it a day.
Right now, we head back to the Trout Unlimited dinner in Calgary. Get caught up with some of the folks who've put in some long hours to make this event such a success. It's a night designed to raise awareness and money, all to benefit Canada's cold water resources. Of course, I'm talking about the Trout Unlimited dinner, which has become one of the hottest tickets in Calgary with over 700 people in attendance.
It goes right back to when the dinner was started 27, 28 years ago. We knew to have a successful event in this town, we had to get the oil patch involved. We sought out and secured high-profile oil industry people to chair right from the get-go. Once the oil patch was engaged in showing support, they bring everybody else along. They bring along the brokers, they bring along the banks, they bring along the law firms. This event's been 27 years in the making. We were fortunate a few years ago, Jim Shaw from Shaw Communications chaired it. Jim's chairmanship led to Rick George, led to Ron Brenneman, led to Pat Daniel, you know, all the A-level executives in Calgary. And now we've got Gord Ritchie, the Executive Vice President for RBC Capital Markets here in town, chairing this year's dinner. We've also got an absolutely phenomenal group of hardcore volunteers, some of whom have been here almost as long as I have. They're experienced, they're diligent, they make the job a lot easier, and thank goodness for them.
Gord Ritchie is the man responsible for chairing the big event. It also just so happens that the company he works with, RBC, has committed $150,000 to a project in southwest Alberta as part of the RBC Blue Water program.
This is a project that started in 2007, and it was a $50 million commitment to protecting water resources globally. To this date, we've put out about $32 million to 450 not-for-profits all around the world. And tonight we'll be announcing two projects with Trout Unlimited that totaled $350,000. One in Vancouver, focused on Qualicum Beach area, and one here in Alberta that is going to be very successful.
Working quietly behind the scenes is the National Board of Directors, all of them volunteers as well. For the longest-serving Trout Unlimited board member, Rafi Tamazian, there is but one reason to keep volunteering his time.
It all boils down to one thing. It's my intense passion for cold water conservation. I think of the water and the rivers that run through our country like the veins and the blood that runs through your body. Without those being healthy, you'll die. And I think our environment will die if we aren't paying attention to that. I believe in controlled growth. I accept the fact that we have to grow and municipalities have to grow, but we have to be aware while we do that of what we're doing to the environment around us. Trout Unlimited is a very strong proponent of the balance between growth and conservation.
It sounds like a philosophy we could all get behind.
The Alberta Hunter Education Instructors Association delivers conservation programs about Alberta's wildlife and fish, which need to be managed for future generations. To date, AHIA has instructed over 1 million students.
Hi, I'm Brad Fenson with the Alberta Fish and Game Association and your outdoor tip of the week. You know, jigs have to be one of Alberta anglers' favorite lures. Standard jigs like this one can be found in almost everybody's tackle box, and there's a wide assortment of weights and colors that they use. The problem with the old standard jig is that it doesn't give you many options in terms of presenting your bait. Of course, with jigs we fish live bait like leeches and dewworms or your frozen minnows, and there's a host of different bodies and tails that we use for getting different action or scent. Some of the new jigs that are out there, like the airplane jig, have wings to actually swim your bait in a figure 8 every time you jig it. So here's another new one. It's called the Zone R, and it's actually tapered on the head so that you can fish this in currents and it'll cut through the flowing water quicker and get your bait down to where the fish are living. One of my favorites for all-around fishing is the new knuckleball. And you can see that when it's sitting on the bottom, it'll actually hold your bait up where it stays visible to fish, and it's easier for them to zone in on it and get over there and inhale it up off the bottom. It does that by creating a balance point where the hook attaches. You'll also notice that there's a bend in the hook and a concave in the back of the head. That's so that you can lock your bait in place. With barbless hooks nowadays, a lot of times you jig and your bait will just swim away on you. So this gives you an option to put a bait on and actually lock it into the jig head so that it can't go anywhere. And you can see how it holds it tightly in place. Now it's also a great option for fishing artificial baits to fish weedless. By hooking it up in this way, by locking it in and just putting the hook into the body of the jig, there's nothing exposed so that you can actually go right into those emerged weed beds and fish for those big predators that are setting up an ambush for their favorite prey species. So the next time you're going to fill your tackle box with jigs, maybe you want to look for some of the new styles and designs, because they will give you the advantage to catch more fish and not necessarily base your purchase just on price point.
One of of the byproducts of oil sands mining is a wet slurry of water and clay that, left to nature, would take over 100 years to support plant life. Today, thanks to recent breakthroughs, scientists can make that happen in 2 or 3 years. Let's visit the Syncrude lab in Edmonton to find out more. One of the big challenges in reclaiming mined areas in northern Alberta is this byproduct, a mixture of 85% water and small clay particles that's basically good for nothing.
The biggest problem with it is that it's actually more like a fluid than a solid. You have this kind of material in the landscape, it doesn't support anything, you can't build anything on it. It's soft, it's fluid.
To get the water out of this waterlogged clay, Syncrude uses a technology called composite tailings.
The basis for CT is I need to add a modifier to turn the liquid into more of a solid material. So I add some gypsum.
Gypsum, or calcium sulfate as it's also known, is another byproduct of the mining. It's found naturally in the ground and is also used in drywall.
You can see that I've already added the calcium, and you can see that my spoon already stands up in the material. That's just with a little bit of calcium, I stiffen up the material.
When you take the oil out of the oil sands, what are you left with? Sand, and lots of it.
Now that I've got enough sand mixed into it, I can add a sand cap to it. So I can now build my reclamation landscape, make a little hill here. And now I have a material that I can now put my organic material, I can put my trees, I could build a little pond on it if I want. But now we can actually pour a deposit that we can reclaim, within a couple of years.
Compared to
hundreds of years, 100 years or more, right, for this. And then it's still soft material even after that time, right? So this definitely speeds it up.
Of course, on site, the whole process happens at a much larger scale. Pipelines mix the materials together and move it to reclamation sites. Sometimes engineers need to make a harder clay material to use as a base under lakes and hills. Starting with this gooey material, they add what is called a polymer flock, spin the water out, and end up with a more solid clay.
Almost like Play-Doh, plasticine. So this material is nice, but it's still a bit too soft. I really can't do any bearing on this material.
So it's spread out over tailing ponds and allowed to freeze, thaw, and then dry in the sun.
And after that, we have a very dense material that looks more like your clay you would find in your backyard. It's dense, it's hard, it's got very low hydraulic properties. Water won't move through this very quickly. And it's a nice material to build out of, or just to build landscapes and geology out of. So now, if I build a clay layer, I can perch a lake on top of it, I could build a wetland on top of it.
The sooner an area returns to its natural state, the sooner it can support wildlife. Robert will continue to look for even better and faster ways of making that happen. Coming up, we go fly fishing with a twist.
Canada's cold water resources need you. Trout Unlimited Canada delivers conservation results for our freshwater ecosystems and their cold water resources. Our work includes stream restoration, scientific research, and education through our Yellowfish Road program.
Now we move ahead to early spring and we cast a fly in the Bow River.
Call us crazy, but a little snow wasn't going to stop my guide, Josh Nugent, from showing me what the Bow River can offer in early spring. With a common sense approach to the day, you can make yourself reasonably comfortable.
So the big things you're looking at from like preventing hypothermia type thing is layers. You definitely want to make sure that you've got a lot of layers. I mean, you can always take layers off, having a layers. I mean, now with the number of synthetic materials we have that wick sweat away from your body to help keep you warm, and then, a windproof layer, like there's a windproof fleece on the outside. You do want to be careful when you get sweaty. If you fall in this water, you're going to be in a lot of trouble in a hurry. And I mean, even where we walked, a 15-minute walk when you're warm is okay, but you feel your waders up in that water and trying to get back to a truck.
Of course, the tactics used for locating fish at this time of year also changes.
You'll probably find you know, 90% of the fish and 10% of the water at this time of year, because not all water is conducive to fish holding in the winter time. The water's colder, their metabolism is slowed right down, so they're looking for places where they can sit where the current's not as fast, but anywhere like on that inside corner where you've got two current seams, where you've got fast water right next to slow moving water, if they can sit on that current seam, they have the best of both worlds, because in the slow water, they don't have to work as hard to fight the current, they're not wasting as much energy, and yet that fast water is constantly pushing food down to them.
And there are other considerations when fishing at this time of year.
It's the greatest part of winter too, is you get those nice little snot droplets that you get on camera and have those drip down.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Josh. And speaking of sharing information, an interesting fact about our guide is that Josh has a master's degree in kinesiology, and his thesis focuses on fly casting.
It was actually an eye tracking study. I worked out of the neuromotor lab, and I was looking at the visual characteristics of expert fly casters, looking at the visual system with respect to accuracy during fly casting, and then the types of visual characteristics that are exhibited by those expert casters. So I had master certified casting instructors outfitted with an eye tracker, and they were casting targets, and I was looking at kind of what type of behaviors or what type of visual search and strategies that they utilize with their eyes.
Calling on all his 10 years experience as a professional guide on the bow, Josh eventually tied into a nice fish.
Oh, seriously? Go on, sorry.
But the biggest fish of the day belonged to this angler who, like us, was crazy enough to brave the chilly waters. The Bow River is no question a rich resource when it comes to fish habitat, but given the fact it also runs through a city of over 1 million people, it can also hide a few disappointments.
You find all sorts of things in the city. Not something that needs to stay in the river. Can't catch a trout, but I can catch a mountain bike.
To stay on top of their game, members of the Kananaskis Country Public Safety Team practice helicopter rescue techniques. Now, they asked me if I wanted to hang out, literally. Being slung under a helicopter may not be something you had on your bucket list, but if you were ever injured while on a backcountry adventure, you'd be thankful for the ride. Training in helicopter rescue operations is an ongoing event for conservation officers who make up a part of the Alberta Parks Public Safety Team.
I know everyone's worked around the aircraft lots, but we'll just touch on a few things.
Dangling at the end of a rope beneath a helicopter creates some tricky flying situations.
Because you actually disappear, as a reminder to everyone. I can't see you in flight at all. The only time I ever see you is short final. You swing forward, and then finally you're into my field of view. And if it's really windy, you're held back there, and sometimes that's where all of a sudden, if the wind stops, you come rushing forward, and then we're trying to compensate for all of that.
With the safety brief complete, it's time to double-check the harnesses. Get tethered to the cable and away you go. Airlifting a rescue member into an accident site is not only the fastest way to respond to an emergency, but in some situations may be the only way to reach an accident victim. Once on the ground, team members have to evaluate their surroundings to determine how best to set up a rescue.
Oh, there we go.
Finding a stout tree is often the first step so that an anchor system can be established.
So I've got that tree, 2 strands on this tree and 1 strand on this tree.
Once the ropes have been laid out and a pulley system put into place, the rescue team can then start to bring up the patient. If a patient is too severely injured to be safely carried down the mountain, a special harness would be used, which is attached to a cable under the helicopter. For over 30 years, the Alberta Parks Public Safety Team has responded to over 10,000 incidents in the Kananaskis Park area.
All right, yeah.
If you would like to catch previous stories featured here on Let's Go Outdoors, then track down our website at letsgooutdoors.ca. Remember, the outdoors is here for all of us to enjoy. If you see someone taking away from that enjoyment, call the Report a Poacher line. Till next time, I'm Michael Short. Let's go outdoors.
I know where I want to be. Outside, wild and free. Let's go outdoors. Let's go outdoors. You and